In this lesson, we talked a little bit more about data types, specifically about the difference between integers and floating point numbers, where floating point numbers are represented with the data type double and integers are represented with the data type int. It's important to choose the right data type. For example, if you need a variable that's going to hold the number of people that attended a concert, you don't want to use double because you can't have a half a person. You want to use an integer. And vice versa. If you're talking about maybe the price of the tickets for that concert, then you want to use double because you want to include the cents that are after the decimal point. Okay, now that we know the difference between the two, let's see what happens when we start to mix them together in an equation. So here in my code, I'm going to go ahead and declare an integer variable. So I'll do int x equals 10. And I'll follow that with another variable. Let me make it a double. Y equals 45.567. Now, what we need to think about is what happens when I mix these in an arithmetic expression. So, for example, if I add them or subtract them or multiply them. In Java, what happens is the compiler and the virtual machine always produce the result as the larger of the two, or the more precise, I guess I should say. So in this case, it would always create a double. So if I wanted to create the result of multiplying x times y, it's going to generate a double value with a decimal point. So if I try to save that value as, so let's do product, if I try to save it into a variable that is an int, I'm going to get a compile time error. It won't even let me do that. And if I click on the little light bulb here, it'll give me some options for how to fix that error. I can cast the result as an int, and that means change the result. And we'll talk a little bit more about casting, but when you cast a double to an int, meaning when you change it, casting is kind of changing the data type of the value. When you change it from a double to an int, keep in mind that it just totally ignores the decimal point. It doesn't round up, it doesn't round down, it just truncates. And the other option here that would work would be to change the variable name product to be a double. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. We'll do that for this one. We'll say double product equals x times y. Now, if I print it out, so one of the really nice shortcut keys that you'll see me use a lot in these videos, and it's available in most of the IDEs, whenever you want to type out system.out.println, if you type SOUT and then you hit the tab key on your keyboard, it automatically expands it. And that'll work whether you're on a Mac or a PC. All right, and I'm just going to type in the word product. All right, so now what's going to happen is if I run it, it's just going to multiply x times y and it's going to print out the result. So I'll click on the green arrow up here on the top right that says run my project, and we'll see the result. And you can see that it just multiplied the value in y times 10, and we get 455.67. Okay, like I said, the same thing would happen if I was adding two numbers or if I was subtracting two numbers. It's always going to, as long as one of the numbers is a double, it will always generate a double as your answer. Now, again, we have to be careful because when we're dealing with integers and mathematics, sometimes we might not realize that we defined variables, we defined values, or we're using values that are considered integers in an equation. So what am I talking about? Let's take a look at an example. Let's say we want to define the volume of a sphere. Okay, we know that the volume of a sphere, so let me go ahead, I'll make it a double, so I'll say double volume is equal to, the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed, okay? So I'm going to do 4 divided by 3 times, one of the nice things about Java is that math class that we learned about also includes some constant values, such as a value for pi. So I can do math dot pi, and you can see the number there as far as how far out it'll go, times, and my radius cubed, so let's say my radius is 10. So I'm just going to do 10 times 10 times 10 just to keep it simple. All right, so this will give me an answer, right? It's going to give me 4/3 pi r cubed. All right, let's go ahead and run this. Let me change this to print out. Instead of printing out the product, I'm going to print out the volume. And let's print out the result. Now, meanwhile, I'm going to open up a calculator and I'm going to actually do the same equation. Okay, so there's my answer. Let me minimize this and I'm going to open up a calculator. And it's a standard calculator. Let me just switch this over to be a scientific calculator. All right, make it a little bit bigger. So if I wanted to do 4 divided by 3 times, and let's do pi, so we'll just do 3.14159. That's the extent of my pi, times, and then the radius was 10, so 10 cubed is going to be 10 times 10 times 10. All right, so it looks like we should get an answer that says 4,188.79, right? Because it will round this time because we're not casting it as an int, we're using it as a double. So let's see, let's go back over to our program and see if we got 4,188. Well, we did not. Okay, so does anybody see what happened and what was wrong here? If you noticed, when I did this, and I did this on purpose just because it's a very easy mistake to make, the program ran, it seems like everything's fine, but right here on line 9, this 4 divided by 3, the compiler and the virtual machine all think that those are two integers, and it says, oh, you only want the integer portion of this value. So 4 divided by 3 using integer division is just 1. So I'm going to change 4 to be 4.0, and I'm going to rerun my program. And this time, I hope I get my 4,188 point, and you can see it does go out to a few decimal points. Okay, so this was just a couple examples of the difference when you're using integers and doubles, and just some things to be aware of. That it will always use what I call the larger of the two. It's called the widening. It'll always create a double if a double is part of the equation. So when I did the 4.0 divided by 3, it then allowed my program to include the decimal portion of that division. Well, I hope this helps you to understand a little bit more about using double versus int in your programs.